Hello, Carrie.
Good morning. It's been a minute morning, hasn't it?
Well, it's good to see you and good to see everyone that's joining us. Welcome back to The Child's Voice, the podcast where we center clarity, dignity, and intentional communication in advocacy, child welfare, and the systems that serve children and families.
Yes, we are super excited to be back, Mary Rose and I. And today we're actually going to be talking about something that maybe not as glamorous as some of our other topics, but just as important. It helps, kind of behind the scenes, quietly shapes a lot of our relationships, and it's email. Like I said, I don't know if people were waiting for something big and fantastic, but we're going to be talking about email today. Specifically, how to write emails that are clear, respectful, and actually get responses.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think that most of us can say we've all sent an email that felt perfectly clear to us and then received a response that made us wonder if the other person read a completely different message.
Yes. Well, at least you got a response. The worst case scenario is we get no response at all.
That is true, absolutely. So today's episode is going to focus on clear email communication, especially in advocacy, child welfare, education, and nonprofit systems, where miscommunication can delay services, create confusion, or unintentionally silence important voices.
Yeah. So we're actually going to break down this topic of writing emails into three practical strategies that make emails easier to read and easier to respond to.
Absolutely. So these are actually things I've tried to utilize over the last decade or so. I had kind of gotten a little bit of training on email communication and making it clearer a long time ago. So I'm a big believer in these three topics, and I can't wait to kind of go into them in more depth. So they would be using the subject line to clearly identify the action being requested, formatting the body of the email so that the main question or request is easy to find, and using bullet points instead of long paragraphs to highlight key information.
No, I like how it's broken down into the three, the subject, and then really that body of it. So, yeah, if you're listening, you're like, oh, that seems simple, that seems small. But these small, simple things can dramatically reduce confusion. It can help with power imbalances so that we're not coming across as bossy or telling people like what to do or how to do their job. And hopefully cuts down on the back and forth. If there's miscommunication, or like you were mentioning before, we think it's clear, but maybe on the receiving end it wasn't super clear, and then you end up going back and forth just trying to clarify things and trying to actually get an answer. Hopefully the goal with using these three things and the tips and tricks that we're going to share today is that, again, that we can cut back on that back and forth, that it's really clear. Our intention is clear, the reader is clear with what we're asking, and then we can get a response back.
Absolutely. So let's jump in. I think that it's probably great to start with the most underestimated part of an email, the subject line.
Yes, and I love the subject line. Yes, which sounds silly and funny, but it really does set the tone and set the expectation for what the reader can expect to see. It's almost like the title of a book, or when the maybe the outside of a restaurant even, right? Like you kind of know what to expect when you go inside. Is it Mexican food? Is it Chinese food, right? The subject line sets the expectation and lets the reader know, okay, this is what's going to happen. And so it's going to help. Is it urgent? Does it need attention? Is it just kind of an FYI? So the subject line really does set the tone for the rest of the email.
Exactly. And one of the most common mistakes is using a subject line that's just like a topic, but not really a call to action. And some examples of that would be things like just putting question. I did this just the other day. I put in two questions as my subject line, and that did not, I know, draw attention to what I needed from the person I was sending it to. Another one is update. That is to me a message in a bottle, just like FYI. If I'm sending something that says update, but not update requested, I've just chucked it out into the ocean and hoped that someone would maybe open it, but I do not expect another message in a bottle back. Another one being meeting. Like, what is meeting? Does that just tell me about a meeting that was already occurred? Is it a meeting that's coming up? Those don't really tell the reader what to do next.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you were even reading that, if I got an email that said update, I'd be like, are you providing an update? Am I providing an update? And an update on what? Update on life, update on a case, update, I don't know, on the weather. Kind of same thing with meeting. Like, okay, like who are you meeting with? Are we meeting? Like, or yeah. So I agree. Those they don't give me anything, and I would be left like, okay, like one, I'd probably be curious again, like, what are we updating on? And so yes, they those perfect examples of what not to do. Um, yes, a strong subject line. We need to have a simple question to the reader. What are you asking me to do? That's what's in it for me, right? When I'm going through all my emails, what are you asking me to do? That's what I want to know.
I love that because I really think curiosity doesn't drive me in the work. I mean, I'm very driven by curiosity, but if I see meeting and
Hmm.
not what I need to do, I'm like, well, I'm not super curious about a meeting. I'm sorry. I mean, most of us think that a lot of meetings could be an email anyways. So I need a little bit to really tell me why it's important for me to get that email open. So subject lines that require that just basically indicate immediate communication of what is expected or what is needed is the action or this requires action. If a good subject line is going to be effective, it says this requires action, what the action is, and when it's needed by. And I think you have a good example of that.
Yeah, so I would probably on something like that, I would put action needed and then what am I needing an action on? So action needed, review project timeline by Friday, right? So
Mhm.
I'm saying you need to read this and I need an answer by this Friday, right? So that kind of senses or puts the urgency up a little bit more. So I'm telling you what I need and when I need it by.
Absolutely. I think that that's a great point. I know I do that a lot with information. It's not that I'm necessarily, it's more informative emails at times, but even sometimes those informative emails, like when you send out for information sessions, having more information in the subject line, just
Yeah.
we know that they won't miss some of the most essential information because it's buried down in an email. Because I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about it, in some ways, we have gotten so instant gratification that sometimes the subject line needs to really tell the story because we don't necessarily have the patience or attention span sometimes to dig through the email to kind of figure out what's being asked of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even for me, the subject lines really help too. Like if I'm going back to search, if I'm trying to find an email that I sent before, like if I know I was really clear in the title or in the subject line, I'm going to be able to find it. Or if I'm trying to find one that somebody has sent to me. The funnier thing though that I would not recommend doing, which actually a few people in my life do, is they put the entire body of the email in the subject line. So there is no body. It's, yeah, can you do lunch tomorrow? Or is this still happening? And so it's all in the subject line. So there is no body, but yeah. So for an education, for example, child serving systems, right? Request for approval and then maybe student support plan or IEP meeting or to attend lunch with student, right? So request for approval. I'm asking for approval and this is what I'm asking for approval for.
Exactly, exactly. Or in advocacy work, we'll say that we want a response. I mean, I think that sometimes we mistake being direct for being demanding. But if I need a response, I think it's absolutely perfectly fine to put response requested, feedback on report draft. I mean, I send sometimes
Mhm.
draft reports to caseworkers, and they like to be able to tell me if there is anything that may need to be corrected. But if I just send feedback on report draft, is that feedback for me or feedback for them? Like that response request that tells them, oh, she's waiting on something. She might be holding off on something pending my response to her email. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think these are good examples. Again, what are we asking? How urgent is it, right? So, like you were saying before, like we're I don't know, we're constantly just scanning through our emails because people are busy, right? They have heavy caseloads. And so they're going to look for, they're going to quickly read that subject line and it's going to help them prioritize. Is this something that can wait? Is this just for information only, right? No response requested versus the one that we said before, is this time sensitive? And I do need to answer it back. And I know for me sometimes too, I'm looking at who's sending it and then what is the subject line? Because I know that some of them are just going to be a quick and easy 2 minute answer, or maybe someone sends something that they, need something that they need to be reset in Optima, right? So the advocates, I know that's going to be quick and easy versus maybe from somebody else that's going to be requiring a little bit more information. So it really does help us and it helps other folks help prioritize and time sensitive decisions, what needs to happen right away.
And I think anyone that maybe mistakes directness for being demanding, I would just say that clarity is not demanding. It's not being demanding. It's being respectful. I mean, I think that as you were outlining, like giving someone a clear idea of what we need from them, it respects their time, it respects our time. And I think that that's what we're really trying to build in this landscape of child welfare and advocacy, is being able to show that mutual respect. And I mean, if something as simple as a subject line can do that, why not utilize it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we did a stellar subject line, right? It worked. They actually opened the email, right? Now comes the part where clarity often breaks down. Okay, we got them in the door, right? They're in our restaurant. Now what?
We get the hook, we got the hook sung.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that maybe both a blessing and a curse is that most people write emails the way that they think,
Mm.
chronologically with lots of background first.
Yeah, I tend to be an overclarifier, right? Like you said, like we think or talk, right? For somehow I'm justifying in my own mind, right? And so, but the reality is that most people read emails by scanning. They don't actually sit and read word by word. They scan it to get the highlights.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it's so important that our main request in that email should be visible within the first few seconds of opening the message.
Okay, so just hit it hard right in the slot. Okay. So kind of a helpful structure, brief context. So brief context, right? What you're writing about, what this is in lieu of, right? So brief context, clear request, and then the supporting details. Because like you said, if they only read, okay, who's this about and what the request, if you had all the details first, they would never even get to your request, right? So brief context, clear request, and then supporting details.
Yep. And I think it's perfectly okay for, if you can identify what that clear request is, label it directly.
Okay, so what do you give us an example of that? What do you mean by that?
So if I were to say, my question is, can
Mm,
you confirm whether this meeting is still scheduled for Thursday?
okay. So you would actually write in your email, my question is.
Yes.
Okay. Could you also do something like I'm requesting approval for, and then say what I'm requesting approval for?
I think that very clearly tells me what it is that you're actually
Okay.
reaching out to me about. And I think one of the things that makes this work that we're not going to be able to really show in the context of a podcast is that my question is, and I'm requesting approval for, could and should be bolded. So using bold text or a line break draws attention, our eyes, to what matters most.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, when you're scanning, that boldness in italics or something, like you said, make it stand out, right? And so I love that too, especially when there's maybe different power dynamics being involved, such as communication between us and CPS, the courts, caregivers, whoever we're communicating with. The clear requests reduce misunderstandings. Like you said, I'm very clear about my question. So hopefully there's no misunderstanding and help everyone feel grounded and respected. That yes, clear, and like you said before, clear is kind, right? Here's my question. There's no reading between the lines. Sometimes we get those emails and you're like, what exactly are they asking me? Like, are they asking me to do something? Are they just giving me information? And so I love that, just makes it really clear. Yes, here's the brief context. Here's what I'm asking. And then here's all the meat and potatoes if you need it to answer my question. Love
I
it.
think about how many times sometimes you read through like paragraphs of information and just be like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be picking up information here. But one little tip, and before we move into our third topic, is bold, underline, italics, all are great ways to format. Do not please use all caps because that
Mm.
tends to take us from highlighting the most important piece to sounding like we're shouting. So just try to refrain from all caps, but bold is a perfect way of really drawing the eye's attention to that information.
Yeah.
So
Good hint, good tip there because you're right, because what we're trying to do is like break down those things, right? We don't want to come across as bossy, and so then unintentionally you're coming across as bossy, like you're shouting at them, like, give me an answer now. Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Uh,
like,
oh,
let
your
me just,
light turned off.
okay, got it back on. A little
Perfect.
for everybody, for our listeners and our viewers. Uh, so let's talk about bullet points.
Woohoo! Okay, so I think some people think that bullet points maybe feel informal. Like, oh no, that, we should be writing in flowy paragraphs. And so they're worried, there's worry or concern that they feel informal, but they actually signal clarity and organization. Again, straight to the point.
Absolutely. I am a very wordy person. And when I find myself writing a paragraph and I know that someone's going to not want to spend the time to read it, bullet points can make it so much easier, both for me and for the person I want to read it, to process the information and to respond accurately.
Yeah, I love it. I know when I'm reading it, like I said, you don't get lost in, like you said, lost in words, lost in details. It's really clear. And so instead of a long paragraph, you might write bullet point, current status of the case, bullet point, outstanding questions, bullet point, next steps needed, right? And it does, I love how it just helps organize and it does make things, it makes it easier to read and understand and comprehend. So I do like bullet points because I am
Um,
also wordy. We have two wordy people on there.
Yes. And, I think it's also really great when you have multiple questions. I mean, a lot of times we need more
Mm,
than one piece of information. And while we have that person's attention, bullet points can really help them understand, oh, and even give them a little structure to when they answer back.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think I do see quite a few instances where you'll send an email with the bullet point questions and they'll just respond back and they'll actually copy and paste the questions and they'll just answer each one right next to each question. And I love that because then you have the question and then you have their answer typically in a different color, even, right? Like, here's my answer in red. And that's the best. So, for example, in this one, you could have, could you please clarify, kind of as our main subject, and then you could have a bullet point whether additional documentation is required, a separate bullet point, so the timeline for review, and then another bullet point even for who should be copied on future communication. So I love that you have the main question. Okay, can you please clarify? Here's our action. And then we have the three different broke out into bullet points. And so they could easily just go next to each one and provide a response and an answer. Yeah, love it.
Exactly. So basically, we've sent them an invitation that invites them to give us clear, complete responses. And there's no, it just leaves less in question about what we need back.
Yeah, I love it. And like we were saying before, it just reduces that emotional load. Like I said, we've been talking about it all morning, right? Dense paragraphs can feel really overwhelming. You just kind of get lost. And when those questions are sprinkled in, like with all of the details and the context, we're more likely even to miss some of the questions. And so, or they're, going to miss the question. So they maybe answer two of our questions, but they completely missed the third question because it was buried into this big old long paragraph. And so, especially I think, when we're working with some really high stakes stuff here. We're talking about children in need, we're talking about trauma, and there's a lot of decisions that are being made about these kids that we're involved in that impact real lives. I mean, these kids' lives, these families' lives. And so making sure, yes, that we make it as easy as possible so that we can get answers as quickly as possible, so we can take action as quickly as possible. So it really does benefit everybody.
Absolutely. And I think bullet points really just help keep everything, you know, excuse me, feeling as though when we've given a very clear idea of what we need back, I feel like it just kind of almost lends itself to a calmness,
Hmm.
and makes everything like, and I think honestly, we can think about how many people might find it really difficult to maybe find the information that is being asked for in a paragraph. So accessibility, even thinking about people that may have things, maybe that might be something like a reading. Um, I hate to even say disability, but being
Hmm.
able to really isolate those things means that we're making it accessible for the person that we're asking for the information from as well. And I think as humans, we really like to have things laid out for us in a way that's easily digestible. So I think that bullet points really lend themselves to making it that much easier to understand. Even as if you're receiving an email or sending it, it just makes everything like bite sized and easy enough to ingest. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I was just thinking too while you were talking that, if you have paragraphs of information to share, it might be easier just to pick up the phone and make a phone call, right? And so, yeah, maybe then follow up in writing, right? Just summarize your conversation afterwards. But yes, I think if it's a lot of information, it might just be easier to pick up the phone.
I think that that's actually one of the fairer things is that I sometimes will say, in my email, if it's easier to respond by a phone call, please don't hesitate to do so. I realize that for a lot of for a lot of everyone that we're working with, sitting
Yeah,
down sometimes and taking the time to write that email, truthfully, it may not take as long as we like inflate in our head.
right.
That's why I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have time to do that. But if they know what we're asking, that is so much easier to call back and say, okay, I know that you had questions on this. I'm just
Yeah,
going to give you my answer that way. So
yeah,
I think that
yeah.
if we can lay all that out easily enough, that sometimes it even lends itself to better communication, even if it's not in the form of an email response.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I know some caseworkers prefer, yeah, to have the conversation over the phone. And like you said, yeah, they're going from this home visit to this home visit. They have 5 minutes to pick up the phone and call and answer your question.
Yes,
So yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Okay, so this is we're kind of wrapping up. So let's recap today's three takeaways.
Well, the first was that we use our subject line to clearly name the action being requested.
Yeah, set that tone, right? Like you said, hook them in, get them in the door. And second, we're going to format our email so that the main request or question stands out immediately. So preferably towards the top, the beginning of the email, main request or question stands out immediately, bold it, highlight it, whatever you have to do. What is your question? What do you need? Or do you not need anything? That's even better, right? Like information only, no response requested, right?
Hey, absolutely. And then third is to use bullet points instead of long paragraphs to highlight key information.
Yes, absolutely. So these support strategies or these strategies that we just talked about really do help support clear communication, hopefully break down and have fewer misunderstandings, and really that more respectful collaboration. I think one of the big things that we all struggle with in this world is misunderstandings when it comes to communication. So any little thing that we can do to break down those misunderstandings is really just going to be beneficial for all.
100%. When communication is clear, we create more space to listen, especially to the voices of children, youth, and families who are too often unheard.
Yes, I love that. All right, and with that, we are done with this segment. We thank you very much for putting up with Mary Rose and I and our shenanigans and we really appreciate you guys, what you guys do, and taking the time to just learn some of these tips and tricks. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks.
I hope you have a great day.